I'll try and make it very rapid. The bat group first came about, if this will move on, in 1983. It was following the Wildlife and Countryside Act in 1981, which gave bats and their roost sites total protection. Richard Warner then was the conservation manager of the Wildlife Trust. Arthur Rivett was working for the Trust. I was a volunteer. And combined with another few people, we formed a bat group. And we're still here. So 35 years on, we've still got a membership of around about 60 people. And the bat group has moved on considerably over that time. Our first project was a bat box project in Rendlesham Forest. Going way back, I think that was 1984, we did that. 120 boxes were actually built at Redgrave, and you can see the very first Redgrave Visitor Centre there on the right-hand, on the far side. Sadly, that Rendlesham Forest blew down in the 87 gale, so that project was fairly short-lived. Health and safety has changed over the years as well. On the left, I don't really think Nick is footing the ladder, and I don't know who's working at the top, but nowadays it's hard hats, it's being strapped to the tree, and it's all very organised. They've got something like 14 projects around the county at the moment, and it's including the one at Thetford Forest that Bob Stebbing started in 1975, so it's a very long-going set of data we have. And again, there's Bob with Arthur. Bob has helped the group enormously over the years, and we're carrying on his work. We're carrying on the project in the forest. We're carrying on the hibernation checks. And the group over the years has done a lot of work in actually protecting the sites, because vandals love to find our underground sites. And so it's very often I get called with the welding gear to go off and start carrying out repairs in the winter. We've done some quite considerable work, working with the Forest Commission. Nick Gibbons was then the Conservation Officer of the Forest Commission. Massive tunnel created. That tunnel was Nick's folly for a number of years until the bats moved in, and now it can have 3 species and more than 80 animals in every winter. Moving on, we've now got a third tunnel at Icklingham, which in its early days, but already it's had brown long-eareds in, so it's moving in the right direction. And every winter, a group of us go and check all the sites, so we've got an ongoing record of how the bats are actually performing, or the numbers are running each year. But obviously that varies with our winters these days. With warmer winters, sometimes there's less animals in the hibernation sites. In the early days, we were doing a lot of work with householders, with natural England, or with English nature then. And things have changed over the years. We seem to get far less in the way of calls out to houses. Consultants do a lot more of the work. And in those days, we knew a lot about the random distribution of bats in the county, because it was really down to there either wanted to be a roof repair or building work somewhere along the line, so it is entirely random. Now all the record, or all the monitoring is very much more focused, and so we're probably losing quite a lot in knowing where all these roost sites are that are actually in people's houses. So that's probably something the group needs to address in the coming years, because we've got thousands of records on the database, but are they still valid? We have to ask that question. The Barbastell bat has been our focus for the last 15 years. In the early days, it still is one of the rarest bats in Suffolk, but if we got 2 records a year, that was pretty much as much as we got. Now with the advent of lots of bat detectors, we've increased that. They're a very scarce bat. We find individuals flying around, but we've now got 140 dots around the county, so they're more widespread than probably we thought in the first place. Dorbenton's bats, very common bat we find in all our hibernation sites, and yet we still only know of 1 breeding site in the county. that's out there to be found. So we've still, 35 years on, we've still got an awful lot to find. Natterer's bat, similarly, it was back in 1996, we actually undertook a survey of all the timber frame barns in the county, and that trebled the number of Natterer's records we had overnight, virtually. And so these animals have probably suffered considerably from barn conversions over the years. We still find plenty in hibernation during the winter, and we get records through the back detectors during the summer, but being a myotis species, they're not very easy to actually split with very similar species. The Leisler's bat, 1975 was the first time it was discovered in Suffolk. And so the bat group first has got new species we've actually found within the period of time of us running. That's found in Bob's Bat Box project, first time in 1975, and now they're spread around, particularly in the west of the country, west of the county, around the Brecks. Pipistrelles, they used to be easy. There was only a pipistrelle, and when we started, and then the advent of DNA and bat detectors, we started to find that some pipistrelles were actually echolocating on a different frequency. So eventually they were split. So you've got the common pipistrelle and you've got the soprano pipistrelle. Okay, you can deal with that. And then we start finding, from 2005, we're finding Nethusius's pipistrelle, which is a migratory species. And so we're picking up animals early spring, in September time, animals coming across from the continent. But also we're picking up a few records in the summer. So it's likelihood now that we've actually got a breeding colony of Nethusius pipistrelle, or more than one in the county. So we're working with the Essex Bat Group now on a national scheme to find out more about what the distribution of that species is. So it's all change, and we're constantly learning. The last species here is our lesser horseshoe bat. Sadly, Arthur and I discovered this back in 2006. It's only the third record ever for Suffolk in the last 100 years. And this bat turned up in a hibernation site from 2006 to 2016. We haven't recorded him in the last 2 years. We've searched high and low in the areas, very distinctive on a bat detector, so we ought to be able to find them. This chap, his nearest colony is 200 miles away in Wiltshire. So he spent the last 10 years of his life in Suffolk, 20 years of his life in Suffolk. Thank you, Sue. Just sole bat, but it's likely now that lesser horseshoes are now extinct in Suffolk again. Who knows what happens in the future. A lot of the group's work nowadays is carrying out bat detector surveys. The early days we used the old QMC detector, which was, those of you who remember Woolworth stores, that was a converted radio done by Queen Mary's College. Now we're using batons and duets with recorders on, so that we can actually record our night's work. And so you spend as much time out in the field as you do stuck in front of the computer working out what you've seen the night before. This is all getting very, very technical, and so I think in some ways you lose the field skills sometimes because you can put a bat detector out, particularly using some of the static detectors. But this is what we will end up with after a night's recording. We select areas around the county which have potential for a wide number of species, but particularly barbastels, and we can produce a report for the landowners, for the reserves, or wherever we're recording, and get an idea of the distribution over the whole of that area. That way then you can start focusing on where you might find the roosts within that site, particularly the early species. The earlier they come out, the closer you are to their roost. And nowadays we've gone into things like these static detectors, which you can leave up for a couple of nights, you can leave them up for a couple of months. You will have an awful lot of data to go through, but it is possible you can pick up a lot more animals than you will on a snapshot survey. So these are doing an awful lot of work out there for us, but it just involves lots and lots of work back on the computer the next day or a little while later. So that leads me to, I've probably shot through this now, to the distribution atlas that we've just produced, which is available. We've got it at the back, priced £5, bargain. It gives us the whole story of the bat distribution that we know to date. And when we think we went back to 1985, we'd only got a record of one serotine in Suffolk, and now we're up to something like 45 colonies, and we pick them up on most of our bat detector surveys now. From then on, we went to about 1989, and we'd still only picking up about 2 Barbastell records a year. And time we've got to the SNS Atlas, we were looking at Barbastell records widespread across the county. And so we're just moving onwards and upwards. Technology is helping us enormously, and I think I will leave it at that. And if you've got more questions, come and see us at the back group stall later, and we will try and recruit you for more work during the summer. Thank you.